Hello and welcome. My name is Heidi Denning and this is Full Potential Fridays. We'd like to have a shout out to everybody in Adelaide. Our hearts are with you. Let us know where you are from around Australia in the comments so we can check in to see how everybody's going. Melbourne are getting a little better, but unfortunately Adelaide, again, as I say, our hearts go out to you. For the next 10 minutes on Full Potential Fridays, we are going to share a shot of inspiration and practical strategies to empower you and your team. And now I am here with my amazing co-host, Nina Mapson-Bone. Good morning, Nina. What are we going to focus on today?
Good morning, Heidi. I'm so excited. Today, we're talking about leadership and in particular, self-leadership. And the fact that all leadership actually starts with self-leadership. We all know, we've all heard that one of the things that people rank most importantly in their leaders is authenticity. And this idea that to be a leader, you need to be really authentic. And one of the best ways to do that is to master self-leadership first, because the mastery of self-leadership is actually the thing that will make you a leader in the eyes of others, regardless of your position or title. And we can all think of those people in our lives that we've thought of as leaders that may not have had the title or the position or the authority, but actually were leaders in the way they displayed their behaviors and the way they showed their actions. Would you agree, Heidi?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. In fact, I've written a whole book on that, self-leadership, Nina. And, you know, in the book, I talk about, and I say it so often, that if we want to be a talented leader, we first need to be a talented self-leader. If we want to have people to walk with us, we need to already have put those traits, show those traits, to be a good role model, to walk our talk, to practice what we preach. I don't know, Nina, have you ever worked for someone who does not practice what they preach?
Absolutely. When I think back to the worst boss I ever had, and obviously I won't name names, but I'm sure those of you, and if you're out there, have a think about the worst boss you've ever had, and what was it about them that really riled you? And often it's the fact that they were incongruent with what they were asking you to do versus what they would do themselves. So in particular, the person I'm thinking about was somebody that would get so angry about the most minor of indiscretions from people in her team, but she would waltz in. I mean, even just on a work ethic perspective, she'd waltz in late to work, she'd take long lunches, she would leave early. So it was very difficult for us to respect her or follow her when she wasn't displaying those traits herself. So, I know it's an old adage, but as you said, Heidi, that do as I do, not do as I say, trying to tell people to do what you say just doesn't work anymore, does it? I guess it's more about people are much more likely to follow your actions than your words. I mean, and you can only get away with following words for so long, as perhaps Trump may have shown us recently. But there comes a point where actions are really important. Would you agree, Heidi?
Absolutely. And as Russell's just said there, you've got to walk the talk. No one will trust you enough to follow. Great point. Thank you, Russell. I know it actually reminds me of a time earlier this year when we were having in-house face-to-face meetings with real humans. And I was talking to the CEO, the human resource director, Change.org, about a training and development program. And right on 12:30, the CEO stood up and she said, okay, that's it. It's lunchtime. If I don't eat and take a break, I'm no good to anyone. We all know what we have to do. Let's all go and have lunch. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know why I have to feel so surprised that this kind of thing happens, but she was displaying self-leadership behaviors that actually had this ripple effect right through her organization, because unless it comes from the top, no one else believes that they're allowed to do it. And that's why it is so important that she did that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so true, right? We all have moments. Let's be honest. We all have moments where we don't always walk the talk. All of us. We're all human, and we get it wrong sometimes. I saw a lovely comment from I won't actually name the person, but from somebody on here who once highlighted to me. We were talking about open feedback, And it was highlighted to me that when technology doesn't work, I can get quite frustrated and I can let that frustration show. And that's not necessarily great leadership, because it doesn't resolve the situation. It doesn't project calmness, So it's easy for people to slip. But when people do it well, like the example you've just given, Heidi, it makes such a difference to people. And I guess that kind of leads us on to the third point around this, is that being a good self-leader doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that you have weaknesses, and this kind of concept that with strength comes vulnerability, and actually strength comes from your vulnerability. And it's okay to own when you're not your best, but it's about how you do that and how you express some of those things, and the ways in which you share information in a way that's appropriate and lets people know if you are vulnerable, but doesn't create fear or panic. So it's a really tricky thing to get right sometimes. Would you agree, Heidi?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's this kind of fine balance. And I'd love to know from people who are listening, what is the self-leadership trait that you love to see from your leaders first, that you really want them to display? Is it authenticity, honesty, vulnerability? Is it that they take a lunch break? Is it that they are happy to say, I've got to go and pick up the kids. I won't be online for the next hour while I do that, but then you can catch me afterwards. So, what are those self-leadership traits you'd love to see? But back to your point, Nina, I think what's really important about this whole self-leadership concept is that it doesn't mean that you are always going to know the right answers, and that you won't be able to ask for help. We do need to ask for help when we need it. We need to put our hand up and say, actually, I need a little assistance with this project, with this deadline, with this decision. Who can help me here? And again, by doing that, by showing it's okay to be fallible and not have all the answers all the time, is the most perfect self-leadership trait to start from. Nina, I know you have got a great example of that, and I'd love it if you could share it, if you could.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm loving the comments that are coming through around the self-leadership traits that people like to see. We've got time management, punctuality, sense of humour, ability to laugh at yourself. Thank you, Joe. And there was one about the time management and punctuality. That's really important. It's hard to help other people manage their workloads if you can't do that yourself. So yes, Erin, thanks for transparency, being human. Some really good ones there. And I think, sorry, Heidi, you alluded there to, I guess, a personal example I have around the kind of the idea of strength and vulnerability. And, I hope I've got this right. But one of the things for me is most people would know I'm very open about this, that a few years ago, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and that was life-changing for our family, and the work that is involved in managing it and the stress that put on us as a family was really quite significant. And in particular, the disruption to our sleep patterns, because we're having to consistently check his bloods and make adjustments through the night every 3 hours. It's a key part of managing the process. But that does mean that often at work, I'm very tired, and I'm not a nice person when I'm very tired at all. And I think what I try and do, I try and express to people, if I've had a particularly bad day, I try and just say to people, look, bear with me. I've had a really bad night's sleep. If I seem a bit, I'm trying not to swear, if I seem a bit off today, then it's not you. It's just because I haven't slept. So try and ignore me if you can, if I seem a bit scratchy. But it's hard, right? And it's just trying to get that balance right to be open and to be vulnerable, but also not let it actually be okay to a point where you're shouting at people or getting, stroppy about things. So it's a tricky balance.
And, also on top of that, it's a recognition that, our work lives are not just our only lives, that there is stuff that goes on in the background that does impact how we show up to work. And for you to be able to say out loud, actually, there's a lot going on here. I've got to get up 5 times a night to my son, and that makes me tired. It allows other people to just be able to be honest as well and say, well, this is actually going on. I might be off for this amount of time, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be a great employee or a great leader for the rest of my career here. It doesn't mean that at all, does it?
No, that's right. Anyway, and it's really exciting because when we think about these things, we think about how we can move forward. And so I've loved this conversation, and we've got more next week, haven't we, Heidi?
We certainly do. And if anyone would like to find out if their teams are reaching their full potential in this crazy 2020 world, we have a very quick online quiz for you to take for potentialteams.com.au. Nina, what will we be talking about next week?
So next week ties in nicely with this. It's the connection impact, how we connect with ourselves, but also with others, and how we make those connections really improve ourselves professionally, and bringing some of the connection piece to a work environment. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation, Heidi.
I am too. Nina, thank you for today. I look forward to seeing you and everybody who keeps coming on every Friday. Thank you to all of you if you are live or if you're coming on after we finish. We do appreciate your comments and questions, and we'll always go back and answer anything that you might want to put to us. And even if you have a topic perhaps that you'd like to ask us to approach, please put it in the comments. That's it for now. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you.